Hello, my name is Garrett Vulgamott, and this is going to be my Culinary 2 video project that I am doing on the cooking method sous vide. And sous vide is a French word or words meaning under vacuum, sous meaning under, and vide meaning vacuum. And it's the process by which you take a cut of meat and you put it in a vacuum sealed bag and then put that in a temperature controlled water bath for a fairly long period of time. So it's going to be a long cooking process. Now, the history behind sous vide was actually not originally made to cook food in a better way or to make it tastier. It was actually made in order for sanitary reasons and for convenience reasons, for having lots of food in vacuum sealed bags allowed it to be transported easily, allowed it to keep for a long time, and then keeping it in hot water was good for sterilization or pasteurization of anything in the bags. It wasn't until I think it was in the 1960s in which it was used mainly in hospitals and cafeterias and things like that. And then it was around the 90s where it was actually more being employed as a cooking method in order to get the right texture or taste of food, as it would make very lean or very tough cuts of meat very tender. So that being said, some good cuts for sous vide would be things like New York strip, which is kind of it's a steak, yes, but it is a steak more often than not, but it's more of a leaner type of steak. It can be a little bit tougher than things like the ribeye or the tenderloin, especially. That would be what I'm doing today. Other cuts may include the chuck or things like the eye round. Anything that would be a large muscle on a cow, that would be a good candidate for sous vide. However, a lot of chefs have sous vide chicken as well, or fish, or it's really more how long do you want to take it. For instance, fish and chicken, it could be around 2 to 3 hours is as much as you would like, but for tougher cuts of meat like I'm doing today, I'm going to be sous videing a New York strip for around 6 hours, as that's what I found is what I like in terms of tenderness. It's in between where it's tender enough to where it melts in your mouth, but not so tender that it's mush. And one of my role models that got me into sous videing is not actually a famous chef or local restaurant or anything like that. It's a YouTuber by the name of Guga Foods. So I believe if you look down into the description, I will provide a link to him, and he does a lot of videos on dry aging, on sous videing, of course, and he tends to do a lot of experiments comparing and contrasting cooking methods, which I find very entertaining and insightful. And now we'll move on to the step-by-step cooking process. And for step one would be to obviously season the meat as I've done before you. I'll be trimming it first. So I guess step one would be trimming, and then seasoning would be step two. And then before sous videing, I am going to leave it in the fridge overnight to sort of let all the seasonings penetrate, which is going to be salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and to just get that further into the meat because it'll help with the cooking process later and get a much better product. And here we have step two of sous videing our strip loin New York steak. I have it in a vacuum sealed bag after it's been resting overnight in salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And in the vacuum sealed bag, I have added olive oil and lemon thyme because they'll add nice flavor to the steak through the long cooking time. So here I'm going to seal it, gonna push it in. There we go. And sometimes I have to watch it and make sure that the olive oil right there doesn't actually leak into the sealer, because it is a wet It is a liquid, so it'll kind of clog it up and make the sealer all gross if I let it pull all the way up and out the edge. And it'll also keep it from sealing as well. And here we have step 3 of the cooking process. I've set up my sous vide machine here in a pot of water. And there's our steaks in the vacuum seal bag. And I'm about to let it go. So that will bring it up to temp, which was 130 as you previously saw. Medium rare is 135. However, due to the long cooking process, I feel like it cooks it more than what is standard for a steak. So I kind of lowball it around 130, and then when we sear it, it'll also bring the temperature up. So 130 during this first cooking, step 3, is what I recommend. And here we have step 4 of the cooking process. I have my 2 New York strips out of the sous vide bag, and I am letting them rest. Now, there's no need to temp them because we know they're at 130 degrees because they've been at that temperature for 6 hours, or at least cooked up to that temperature over 6 hours. And remember when I said that we needed to let them rest overnight with the salt? That is the reason why, is that loss of moisture right there during the cooking process. I find that if you let them rest overnight with the salt, that helps them keep their juices during the cooking process. And if I did not let them rest overnight with the salt, this entire pan would be covered with juices, and that's a lot of flavor that we've lost from the meat. Step 5 of the cooking process is going to be to sear the steaks, and this is mainly done to form that nice crust that's usually on a steak, that slightly caramelized burnt taste, and also to make them look pretty. They don't look very pretty right now. So let me just put these on. After they've been resting, and they're around 100 degrees, and we don't want them to go past 130 again. But if we were to just take them right out of the bag and put them on the grill or griddle, they would go up to 140, 150 maybe even, and that would ruin the medium rare that we've already built. So I'll see you in a little bit. All right, here we have our beautiful steak now that it's been seared. And if I were to temp it freshly off of the cast iron, measure 127, just shy of 130 here. Let me get the, oh, that's an edge there, center, just shy of 130, which is perfect. And yeah, now that it's nice and beautiful, you can see it is putting out some juices, but not a lot. You really don't want it to be putting out a lot of juices because that means you overcooked it and taken it past a comfortable temp. All right, here we are after step 6 of the cooking process, which would be the final rest. I'm gonna temp my steak right here. You can see it's just about at 100 degrees. I would like it between 100 and 110, so I'm a little bit late on that. And we're gonna cut it right down the middle to see if I screwed this up or not. All right, moment of truth. I don't know about you, but that looks like a pretty good steak to me. A little bit more, well, a little bit more medium, but that's the long cooking process for you, even though we kept it below 130, but it should be rather tender despite that. And here we have the final product with a little tasting menu style plating on top of a rice pilaf. And what I actually have is in this spoon right here is some dry aged beef tallow. I like to dry age sometimes with my dad, and we found that some of the fat in the roast that we make can be boiled down, and you get a nice, like, concentrated dry aged flavor that you can make into tallow. So I'm just gonna put that on it real quick. Just a few drops. And there we go. There's the finished product.